y'all? Welcome to another episode of Soccer for Us. I am Bart, and on this episode, we are talking about the roster that Mauricio Pochettino has called together of guys who are technically USMNT eligible players. It is unfortunately not what you would consider the strongest roster, and I think my tone colors the conversation we're going to have because we are rapidly approaching kickoff of the 2026 World Cup, and we have yet to see a full squad of USMNT players under Mauricio Pochettino play for any extended period of time. To talk about this and more is the greatest historian on US Twitter. It is Thomas, aka US Keeper. Thomas, how many games do you think these guys have to play with each other before they actually become a team? Is one good enough? Because I mean, that's what we're looking at here.
I mean, we do forget though. This group has played together a lot, right? I mean, not under this manager, but they have played together a lot. I think we do want to. To me, you want to see that core group as much as possible under this new formation, under this new coach. Um, I mean, there's no excuse in March. Like, there's not an excuse in March. And you obviously, you would like to see it here. Some of the guys called in. We'll discuss. They're not all exciting in general. I mean, I think true experimentation is done when in terms of what we've seen. There's no other like holy cow type player I think out there. This is a dual national who is ready to come over in March, which I don't suspect. We only had that happen once at a World Cup, I think, back in '98, where a player came in very late into the mix, and of course it kind of ruffled feathers because he ended up starting all the World Cup matches. But so I don't know. I mean, I want to see it. The fans want to see it. I guess it's going to be 2 windows.
Yeah. I just think we're running out of time to see what we think this team might actually be. And I think part of the other problem too, and we'll get into this in the roster discussion, is just the more and more someone get like random dudes get called up because player A isn't available or player B's club says that, their pinky toe hurts a little bit and they can't travel. The more that it allows guys who aren't as talented a chance to make their case over guys who are actually talented and for some reason don't get called in. So that's where we're at. Before we get into that, though, Thomas, there is some breaking news. We are recording on a Wednesday. I say breaking, it's been developing for a while, but today, Paul Tenorio of The Athletic and Tom Bogert basically reported that MLS owners are expected to vote on flipping the fall to spring calendar for MLS's competition schedule. Now, the Board of Governors meeting is on Thursday, so we could be talking about this and it could be nothing because they could vote to not do it. I think that's the thing, is that it's just says that they are going to vote. That is significant, and I think a significant moment in U.S. soccer. We do have a league that runs in this fall to spring calendar. The USL Super League does it. To be frank, I know they pitch themselves as a Division One league. I think it's fair to say they are not a top flight league. Sorry to USL Super League fans, but it's just my perspective. So we are looking at potentially having a top division actually being in alignment with the European calendar. Again, it could end up not happening. This is just a vote. But I do think, Thomas, this is a little bit in MLS responding to the moves and the announcement that USL is looking at opening up a first division and running promotion relegation through their top 3 divisions. This to me does feel like a competition change to, I don't know, make noise, but also position itself to be in a better financial player in the global scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, they want to get in line with the rest of the world. I know fans have been asking for it in general. We know they don't align with the FIFA windows. They don't, they play matches obviously they're required to release players, so that will happen, but that impacts the club too, right? And so I think maybe there's a compromise. I know there's a lot of logistical things that they'll have to figure out in terms of um, who plays where when. I mean, I obviously you don't want to be playing in Minnesota in January or February like the U.S. men's national team did, with any regularity, right? I mean, because you want the fan experience needs to be good as well. So I think I guess there's some of it that makes sense. I think there's some of it they just have to kind of figure out what the logistics are going to be. When it starts, when it ends, how long are the breaks, the different impacts to that in general. It's an interesting landscape because the United States is huge. We're not talking about a single country, right? Like if you're saying, hey, it's in Texas, and we're just going to figure it out and make it work,
Right.
right? And that's the challenge with having that same landscape as the rest of the world. There's no other country that has, you know, four time zones and thousands of miles from clubs. So I think that logistical piece of it is one that they've obviously thought of, but they've got to make
Mhm.
it work too. And we're going to see it at the World Cup as well, right? To have that as well in terms of how that's going to work in terms of match times and all these different things that go with it.
Yeah, I think about a lot of obviously the European leagues are the ones who adopt this calendar. A lot of the South American leagues or Latin American leagues, I'll throw Mexico in that, have the Apertura Clausura system, which splits your year into two seasons basically. But even a country like Brazil is comparable in terms of size. I think Mexico is fairly comparable in size, but they're not spanning the climates, I think, that the US does. Um, Argentina is a very large country as well, but when you look at where their teams are located, they're not spanning the climates that the US has. I mean, Montreal is vastly different from Los Angeles, is vastly different even from Miami, is vastly different from Seattle, Vancouver. So, those are, if you were to say, the four corners, if you will, of the league. Well, Miami and LA, yes, you can say they're both warm weather climates. They're different. Miami has a whole set of problems on its own with thunderstorms and hurricanes. You know, Montreal, though it may be similar latitude of Vancouver, has a whole different set of problems with its snow versus Vancouver just having rain. So, no matter where you go, you're gonna have weather issues. That's just kind of my thought. Is people keep talking about, oh, well, it's gonna be cold. Yeah, it will be. But in the summer, in Austin and Houston and Orlando, it gets hot. It gets in my opinion, as someone who has played the game for a very long time, I think heat can be way more detrimental to player performance than 30-degree weather. Now, obviously, you don't want to be playing in a lot colder than that because that will also that'll hamper your performance. But when you're talking about actual danger to players, overheating in 90 plus degree weather is way more of a problem, in my opinion, than guys going out there in 25, 30-degree weather. That's just my personal experience.
Yeah, I mean, in my part of the country, I mean, the season's wrapping up. It's wrapped up at this point, right? We're in
Right.
kind of middle of November. High school seasons are done, but there are club seasons that are just starting, and they will be practicing outside, right? And so as long as they have turf, they can do that. But it's cold. The sun sets
It's
at
cold. Yeah.
the sun sets at 4:30, 4 o'clock, right? And so those logistical challenges, I mean, are things that need to be accounted for. And I think you can do it for a little bit, but in the peaks of those
Hmm.
months, right? So there's probably 2 months, 10 weeks ish, where it's like, this is probably the worst of it, right? In terms of, even when you talk the oppressive heat, 10, weeks, whatever,
Yeah.
right? You get that anywhere. So it's going to be a scheduling thing that they're going to have to work on. So there are going to be teams that get front loaded probably with more home games to start the season,
Yes.
or not to start the season, kind of like in the middle of the season, essentially, right? And so they'll have to balance that as best they can, with that. And uh, I don't know. I mean, people come out to watch college football and professional football in very cold temperatures. So
Yes.
I just don't, from a fan's perspective, they'll just have to embrace it.
So therein lies one of the solutions I do think MLS can provide to this cold weather specifically problem. Now, firstly, according to the reporting from Tenorio, they will take a break from mid-December through what looks like the start of February. According to his reporting, they do not want to start back the same weekend as Super Bowl weekend, which probably means they're coming back the first weekend of February. The league already starts at the end of February, so you're talking a couple weeks. Yes, it's cold. I'm not denying that. But that is, I think, avoiding the biggest problem of the weather. The second thing, and you just said it, is college football and NFL often start their games earlier in the day. And I do think that MLS may have to work with Apple TV and just tell Apple TV, if we're doing this, we need to offer 1 or 2 p.m. kickoff times for places that we feel are going to be prohibitively cold. Um, Minnesota, Boston, Montreal, Toronto, uh, even, to an extent, Philadelphia, New York, those types of places, Chicago, probably say, hey, for these guys, we're going to do a 2 p.m., 3 p.m. kickoff, and that puts you earlier in the day where you're playing in the sun type of thing. I think that is a solution that they could look at. Now, will they listen to me, a little podcaster who, talks to people for a living? Probably not. But that is an easy, I think, solution they can work in. I also think that the winter break from December through uh, February will help with that. Now, the con to that, I will say, that's a very long break. And that long of a break during the middle of the season, to me, does possibly add some competitive inconsistencies. However, I think one thing that MLS has struggled with now that it is a little bit of a bigger player in the global transfer market, this aligns you a lot more with those transfer markets in Europe and even with South America, where you're just in the off season in a similar situation as those teams. So I specifically remember for Atlanta United when we have tried to sell players, because we do have big players that we try to sell. Um, Selling them in the summer sucks because now that player is no longer on your team, and obviously if you're selling a player like that, they're an important part of your team. You're selling them and they're no longer part of your team for the rest of the season. And part of the problem with selling in your off season is not every team is looking to buy and spend a lot of money in the off during their season. They're just trying to fill holes and make improvements in that winter transfer market, which is their secondary market. So to me, that is, I think, the biggest driver of this, Thomas, where like it's about making sure owners can make the most on their investment in the player.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time when MLS season started much later, and Landon Donovan could
Yes.
go over and play 10 matches in Europe, right? Which is a great thing to kind of keep him in shape, keep him in form, push him, kind of get that taste of it. And I think for Landon, it was probably something that, I think I think maybe helped grow his game a little bit because he didn't want to be over there
Hmm.
full time. He just wanted to have the taste of it, and he did well in some of those stints over there, but they were short lived, and he came back and started the MLS season. And I don't know what the agreement is with something like that, so I don't know if is that something that they could potentially do or arrange for that period of time. It's probably not long enough, but
Yeah, and I don't think there are enough teams playing during that time because even a lot of those leagues are breaking at that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it did exist, and so but it definitely it's a different landscape in terms of how they're going to sell players, um, in the timing of which they do that now. If it continues away, I think it helps the club more actually instead of hurts them.
Thomas, I just thought of something. We talked about it on our last episode. Maybe this means January camp will stay because January is the time that they're breaking, and maybe they'll keep it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there is there is that option. I mean, it's yeah. We'll see. It could still be at the end of December or beginning of January. I think there's still a place for it, but they'll have to be crafty in how they change it. But
I will just say that I think breaking in June and July, period, is good for the league because that is when soccer takes a break. And we're no longer now. I wish we would have done it beforehand and we weren't fighting with it during the 2026 World Cup. But going forward, that means you're not fighting against, again, I'm an MLS season ticket holder, right? And watching my team, I remember in 2024 we had a couple of guys who played for Georgia, Poland. They're out during Euros, right? We've lost, we had guys who do represent the U.S. and they're out during the Gold Cup, and it's really annoying to be missing your best players because they have the audacity to play for their clubs um, during peak international tournament season, and MLS is like, well, we're still going to play. And to me, that is a little just frustrating. So hopefully this would resolve that, and it leaves that space open just for international tournament time, which we know
yeah,
CONCACAF will find a way to fill.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I don't like when players can't be released, in, in those windows of time, right? And so you look at that in terms of the scheduling of the Gold Cup. Typically, the Gold Cup has two kind of relative start dates. Kind of sometimes mid to later, June, and then there's the one that's further into July and maybe ending near August, right? So at that point, that will have to be more of a consistent start to the Gold Cup if they're going to do that, right? And so and that's more fair to the players in general because and we'll discuss it later. Healthy players need to be released for FIFA tournaments no matter when they fall. There's no you know bartering behind that. If the player is called in and they're healthy, they have to be released. There's no, if any agreement happens between the club and the international team is that agreement. But if
Mm-hmm.
they're called in, they need to come in. So it prevents any of that gap in your rosters. And to me, I love the international summer soccer concept. Right, that's what I want to see more of. Maybe this allows that. And FIFA's like, oh, this is what we need to be featuring these sorts of things, these sorts of clubs. You know, be smart about it. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
essentially, you know, there's opportunity, I think, for that. I don't know if FIFA is smart enough to really grab onto that the way they should, because I think it's all about money for them. So the Club World Cup is probably here to stay in the summer, but we'll see.
That also is a good thing if you're talking about MLS teams potentially making it because
Well,
now
right.
they're not. Yeah. Anyway, one other point I do want to make about this in general is just I don't want to have this come off as we need to copy Europe. That's not what I'm saying. I think American soccer and American sports are inherently unique and different from what the European product is, and that's fine. But at the same time, we need to be doing things that make sense in the grand scheme of what soccer is. And that's kind of where I fall on this is I liked the calendar we had because it was cool and fun and it was a little different, but now I'm like, well, if we actually want to be considered part of the global ecosphere of soccer, we might need to like be on the same calendar on a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's like anything; it can be adjusted. I mean, you brought up the Mexico and Brazil and the way they kind of have the two broken out seasons. Maybe that's something too, right? That they'll look into. I don't really know. I
I don't
think
know. Yeah.
they're again logistically, it's a little unique in terms of any other league or country in the world. So I think it's okay to do something and then tweak it as you go along to find what's going to fit best for the players and the fans. Because at the end of the day, you want the fans to go to the game and have a great experience, and the players
Correct.
want fans around them. So
Correct.
you have to figure out how that's going to work within that landscape.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know if they're going to vote on it. We certainly don't know how they're going to vote on it. We just know that the reporting is that it looks like they will vote on it on Thursday. Obviously, we're recording Wednesday, so by the time this drops on Friday, who knows what the decision will be, but that's our discussion point on it. Let's now turn our attention fully onto the USMNT and those call-ups that you were talking about, Thomas. Mauricio Pochettino has called in 24 players now to take part of this November training camp ahead of 2 matches against Paraguay and Uruguay. The USMNT will close out 2025 with a roster that I'm just saying is not anywhere close to full strength. I think that is the number one way to categorize this roster. I think if I were to put another word to it, it would be, I don't want to say hypocritical, but that's what it feels like in some cases, the way that Mauricio Pochettino has talked previously and how we're seeing things now. But it's not necessarily controversial, but it does feel like we're it's it feels a little experimenty to me, Thomas. I'm not gonna lie.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, we've seen most of these players in the last 6 months, right? We've seen most of them come into camp. They may have not have played, but we've seen most of them be in from the Gold Cup on, be part of the men's national team. I mean, when you break down the positions, there are some you're like, yeah, there's a lot of gaps here. There's some like, yeah, kind of the same old, and and others were like, huh, we got a mixture of guys that really didn't impress us to begin with, and one's like, what the hell are they doing back here, type of thing. So I think it's a little bit grasping at straws, but I think what it does too is it does create more of an understanding of what Pochettino's depth chart looks like, right? Like, it,
Yeah.
because because whether we like it or not, he's developed that in the last year, and now we're seeing how it all falls together in general. And so we're seeing what the so-called pecking order is for players when they're out. And this this has a feel of every single run up to a World Cup, saying, "Crap, our best players need to be healthy. What's going? Anthony Robinson, Pulisic, all your key players, right? We could have a strong team if everyone's healthy. Well, that rarely happens, right? Which rarely happens that we see the whole, whatever 40 players, right? That you can say, yep, you can pick any of these 40. They're all healthy, they're all in form, and you're ready to go. Because it is scary because we don't have the depth. Uh,
Mm.
that we've never had that, right? I would say we don't have the depth in each position. I think we have more quality overall roster wise, but you still have a gap when a player's out. Like, who's going to fill that Pulisic role
Yeah.
if he's out? Who's going to fill the Balogun role if he's out or whatever? I mean, I think strikers a little bit more. We have more depth there, but you get my point, right?
Yeah. Well, let's run through the position groups. I think there are a couple of these groups that to me signal big things. I could be reading more into it than I should, though. So I'm here happy to hear what you say about it. Goalkeepers. There are four, which is a little interesting. Roman Celentano from Cincinnati, Matt Freese from New York City, Jonathan Klinsmann from Cessna, and Patrick Schulte from Columbus Crew. Now, what's the name we didn't read off there, Thomas?
That would be Matt Turner.
Now, reports are, I say reports, but he is apparently training with Crystal Palace because his season is now over. Um, so maybe that's what Pochettino felt was good for him. I don't know. I don't know. Am I reading too much into saying, holy crap, Matt Turner isn't here? He didn't play at all last camp. He hasn't really been favored by Mauricio Pochettino at all. And it seems like Matt Turner is not going to be playing in the World Cup in 2026.
I think it's a stretch, and here's my thought. I mean, Freeze has started the last 10 matches for the men's team, right? No, he started and played all the matches. Turner's last match was against Switzerland, which was ugly. I look at it this way, right? Freeze is hands down the number one goalkeeper in the eyes of Pochettino. Pochettino wants him to
Mm.
play, and he's going to play, right or wrong, right? And so, which I think is wrong, because if he gets injured, which is entirely possible, then you're not going to go to another unexperienced goalkeeper at this point and say, hey, well, geez, Schulte or whoever,
Just
right? You just can't do that. You cannot do that. So it's irresponsible, in my opinion, for Pochettino to do what he's doing. I understand he's trying to get him the minutes because he doesn't have them. He's gonna be in a situation where he's gonna have very few caps heading into a World Cup. And again, I'm sorry, I'm going to pound this point to death because it matters. He did not ever go through a World Cup qualifying cycle. That is a problem to me. And I look at it this way. He's probably said, "Hey, Turner, you're not going to play. Freeze is going to play both matches. You're not going to play. You might as well just stay where you are. I'm going to bring these other keepers in, see what our depth looks like, just to make sure we have it in line in case players aren't
Mm.
healthy along the way. You're our second choice keeper, but you're better off staying Crystal Palace and getting your training in over there." I mean, that's my 2 cents on that. I mean, to me, no other keeper. You have to have that experience on the roster if there's an injury, right? I mean, because who's your second? If Turner's not your second choice, who is? Right?
I mean,
I mean,
that's a great question because like Schulte's played a little bit. Celentano's played. He's got a couple of call ups, but no actual caps. Like I'm with you. That to me is very concerning, and it's not in the sense of like a Sean Johnson or Nick Romando. By the way, whoever tweeted about Nick Romando's slander earlier this week, talking about how he actually wasn't very good, you don't need to tweet about soccer ever again. That's just putting that out there. But with Romando or Sean Johnson, these are guys that had been proven, experienced MLS goalkeepers who we knew were very good, right? Sure, they were not better than the two goalkeepers ahead of them, right? I think it's fair to say Sean Johnson was not better than Stefan or Turner at that point in time, but fair to say that he was a very good goalkeeper who you could go, okay, well, we knew what we're getting, mostly reliable. Nick Romando, sorry he wasn't better than Brad Guzan and Tim Howard. You know, I, I'm barely getting confidence in Matt Freeze.
well, right. I mean, the two you mentioned to me are very quality veteran goalkeepers, right? Look at that. They're in there, and I would be fine with them being in the match if they had to go in. I'd have no issues with either one going in there. And that's how and they've selected that over the for quite a while to have that veteran keeper be the number 3 keeper in the in the World Cup. And that's what US Soccer has done, and that's what the coaches have made the decision for. And so, to me, if you don't bring Turner, Stefan's clearly not in the mix because if you figure he would be, Schulte's the only other keeper that has been gotten a cap under Pochettino other than Stefan and Turner, and they've only had one each, I believe. So again, he's putting all his eggs in one basket. And if you go back to the history of looking through that in general, and to me, he's not a clear-cut favorite, right? He's not a Tim Howard coming into
Right.
It's Tim Howard's job. There's not even him to lose. It's his job, right? Because they've jumped around. He's trying to catch him up. I've got to give him as many caps as I can before the World Cup, right? And he's gonna tie, I think Tony Meola for the fewest amount of caps heading into a World Cup. For a U.S. men's national team goalkeeper at 17, I believe, if he starts every match between now and then, which right now it seems like if he's healthy, he's going to. But it's concerning to me. It's concerning to me that he's not trying giving keepers. I mean, I wouldn't want Klinsmann to start. Schulte, I'd be fine with. Celentano, forget it. I mean, to me, that's crazy. And so and obviously
I think
Chris
both
Brady isn't.
Celentano and
Yeah,
Klinsmann are a little crazy, and I'm just
yeah,
going to say that because why are we bringing them in now?
yeah.
In terms of like why are we Klinsmann has had a couple call ups this fall, and I'm going, why? We like I'm not against him necessarily, but you're not playing him, so what's the point?
Right.
You know,
I mean, and Chris Brady is injured. In case people don't know that, so
that's
I think
fair.
he
Yeah,
would be on
and
this.
and no Diego Koken called up for reasons I don't know. He is with the U21 camp, whatever we're calling it right now. So fine, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the mix either, though. I don't think he's in the mix anymore. I think, um, I think Brady will be that third keeper, mostly obviously if he's healthy. But yeah, I think Turner is getting the chance to do what he needs to do. He was told he wasn't going to play, and he's like, I just want to have bring these other guys in
Yeah.
and see what they have because I do believe Pochettino when he says I know what I have in Turner. And Turner does need to kind of keep
I know,
sharp.
because he uses that
Yeah.
same thing for another guy we're going to talk about, Weston McKennie, where it's like, right, but maybe we could like still use him a little bit to like, I don't know, I don't know, I
Well,
don't feel confident.
McKinney's different. We'll get into that, when we talk about the midfielders, but as opposed to a goalkeeper, because a goalkeeper, either you're playing him or you're not. I mean,
That's
the,
fair, yeah.
the last time the U.S. had subbed a goalkeeper out was back in 2024, and I don't know if Turner got injured in that. I think Turner got injured, and Horvath came in against Panama. Um, didn't he hurt his knee or something during
Yeah.
Copa America? Yeah, something happened, but he ended up being fine. I think it was a precautionary thing. But like, the U.S. has not subbed a lot of goalkeepers in. I mean, next time you have to go back to when they had another sub was back in 2021. It's
Hmm.
consistent, right? The keepers play the whole match. They don't come out, and that's fine. Um, I don't have any problem with that, but I would like to see other keepers get a chance. I mean, in this camp, frankly, I don't want to see any other keepers get a chance, so I want Freeze to play in both matches. But yeah, we'll see. I
Hmm.
still have hope for Turner. I do think he has quality. He has the experience. I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I think he's been a a really good teammate, and I think there's a lot to be said for that too.
I I will reserve right to be uncertain. Let's just put it that way. Moving up the field, the defenders. So we have 9 defenders called in, and we'll talk about a couple that aren't here, but we'll talk mainly about one that is here. So Max Arfston, Serginho Dest, Alex Freeman, Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, Miles Robinson, Joe Scally, John Tolkien, and Austin Trusty. Now, those last 3 names are guys who are being called back into the fold a little bit. Trusty has been in and out, but the first 6 are, I think, expected, right? Big name not here is no Chris Richards. The next big name is no Jedi Robinson. He's been in and out with injury for Fulham, and he hasn't been playing for the U.S. anyway. No Chris Richards because their coach got a little pissy that we played him too much apparently for friendlies, even though it's not like we don't have our own things to prepare for. But the first 6 guys, whether we like it or not, are not surprises. I will say, surprised that Joe Scally is back into the fold. I really am. And I'm a little surprised John Tolkien as well, if I'm going to be honest. I wasn't expecting that call. I'm happy for it. I don't think he and Arfson are that separated, but I think Tolkien has a little bit more to add defensively. But Joe Scally is the name to look at on this list.
Yeah, he really is. But if you look at the roster too, right? What stands out to me is you have Dest, Freeman, Arfston, and Tolkien, all fullbacks, right? So wingback,
Mm-hmm.
fullbacks, right? And then Scally, to me, you're not going to bring in that piece of it. And I think this is where we've talked about this before. Scally fits into that right center back position in the 3-back formation. And to me, you're calling these players in, they need minutes. Enough. I mean, you need minutes for them to give a chance. Training is one thing, but you need to give these players ample opportunity to do this. I firmly believe Scally is the quality that you need, and he also provides additional depth for other positions in case of injury, right? So you look at
Mm-hmm.
that in general. Whatever they did, golf cart, no golf cart, whatever, I think he needs to get that look in that position because I think that's where he's actually going to do well in this formation. And I think he can provide that depth there. And you know what? He may even be able to find a starting spot in there because to me, Miles Robinson is still, I mean, he's doing okay, but he could be doing better.
I mean, that's where I'm at, right? Is as soon as we started doing a little bit more of this 3 center back with, the one that on the right side that plays a little bit as an actual right back. I I didn't understand why Joe Scally wasn't brought up because to me, he is the perfect player in the player pool for that position. But what do I know? I'm not Mauricio Pochettino.
Yeah, I mean, I am happy to see him in there. I mean, whatever there are a few other players that I think fall into that. Hey, glad he's players in camp and we can see them. So my hope is with any of these players we talk about that they do get the opportunity to have a reasonable, even if it's just a half out there,
Yeah.
just to play and to see how it's the landscape's going to look with that, because it's clear that Nokia Banks is probably not really high on the list. Cameron Carter Vickers is injured. Miles Robinson, if he's healthy and in form, he's still average-ish, right? I
Hmm.
mean, he's not at the level I would like to see them there. So to have that opportunity and option within that position, I think is important. And players get moved around in this new formation, and I think Scally fits in
Yes.
well in that role.
Yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. Is I think Scally fits it very well. I I don't want to spend too much time on Austin Trusty, but I think it is interesting that he did call in a center back like this, just because Cameron Carter Vickers hasn't really impressed him, I guess, or something. He hasn't really played under him. Um, but he did feel the need to call in the center back with Chris Richards out, and Trusty does seem to be, as you mentioned, getting a glimpse at his depth chart. Austin Trusty does seem to be the next guy up, if you will. Vickers
Ye-
hurt also, which probably helps him, but interesting.
Yeah, I think to me it's a very shallow depth chart when you look at the center backs. It just is. There's a lot of young ones kind of coming up. Jalen Neal and Winder, who played in
Mhm.
the U20 World Cup, but I don't think they're ready. And I don't think I in Banks. I'd like to think he's ready because he is playing at a high level at Division One in Germany and starting quite often. But I just don't know if I just don't know where Pochettino ranks him. We just haven't seen him in the last couple camps, and to me, that's concerning. Um, because a player that's young like that, you want to have them integrated into the group.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, I wish we'd actually get a look at him. I'm with you, but you know, I guess we're not going to. So here we are. Moving up the pitch to the midfielders. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have any other comments on those defenders that you wanted to
I,
put out there?
I mean,
My bad.
I think John Toklin. I just want to mention him though. I think it brings up, and I'm as time goes on, I'm getting more and more concerned about the health of Jedi Robinson. Um, and
Oh, aren't we all?
yeah, I mean, it's no new news there, but Token, would be that additional depth in that fullback wingback position to replace any injured player. I think he's next in line. I don't think. I mean, I don't see a lot. We haven't seen a lot of other players. We haven't seen London Forever. Wiley, I just don't think is on on the radar at all. He's had some health issues, but so and Tolkien is he's had his looks. Um, he played in the Gold Cup, so I think this is it's. I'm glad he's up. I don't know if he'll play though, but I think it's just again Ponchino's depth chart pecking order. It's starting to kind of all come together now in terms of who's next in line if the player's not able to perform or be in good health.
Yeah, we are. I think you're right. We're seeing that. In the midfield, we have six guys: Sebastian Berhalter, Aiden Morris, Gio Reyna, Christian Roldan, Tanner Tussman, Timmy Tillman, a late addition. He was brought in on Monday for Tyler Adams, who is injured, and Sean Zawadski, who's injured. So let me rant about Sean Zawadski for a second, if you will allow me, Thomas. One, why was this dude called in anyway? We already had Sebastian Berhalter, who kind of plays a similar position. We had Tyler Adams, who plays a similar position. Johnny Cardoso is hurt, but he plays a similar position. And then you also had Tanner Tessman and Aiden Morris, who played the similar position. Why on God's green earth are we calling it another defensive midfielder who is never really shown out at all for the U.S. men's national team? Has like one appearance. It's under Greg Berhalter, by the way, and is a okay MLS player. I mean, he has been called in 3 times this year and been hurt for all of them. Why do we keep calling him in? Why are we spending time on this? I,
It's yeah.
I don't know why we were spending time on him anyway, but here we are calling him in for who knows why in this camp.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a head scratcher. I'm not sure why. I don't, I don't see anything amazing about this player. I think there are other players that offer a lot more that haven't been called in a while. He he's wanted to see him in camps. I mean, I think he made it partially through one of the camps and then ended up not. I don't know if he left early or not, but he never rostered in any of the matches. So, um,
I
yeah,
think he did leave early. You are right.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, so he's gotten enough of a look, I guess. Based, because Pochettino doesn't have to play the players to get a look, right? Apparently, but I don't know. I don't know what the obsession is. I don't know
Like,
if
to your point, why was why were Gio Reyna and Joe Scally exiled for so long, but Sean frickin' Zawadski was the guy that Berhalter kept calling up? Like, at a position that, to be frank, is not a position of depth. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but it's just we have Tyler Adams. We have a guy in Johnny Cardoso who isn't great, but hasn't played well for the national team, I should say, but is pretty darn good for his club team. We have Aiden Morris. We have Tanner Tessman. We have dudes who can play defensive midfielder. Shit, we have Yunus Musa, who you also refuse to call up. Why is Sean Zawadzki a dude you feel like you have to be calling up so much, despite him never actually giving us anything? And when I mean us, I don't mean you in training. I mean us as fans who watch the game live, because we haven't seen him. Again, we've seen him one time under Greg Berhalter. He was whatever, fine. So that's kind of my issue again when Pochettino talks about his reasoning and why my faith in him is not very high. It's because he keeps doing stuff like this where I go, who gives a shit about this dude? I'm sorry. Why are you spending this much time and energy on Sean Zawadzki?
yeah, I don't. Again, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be. The MSL, the MLS bias, the MLS quota. All that we joke about it, but there is something to that a little bit. There is something about
Well, yeah, because
each.
his freaking team refuses to go and recruit and scout European matches. They only scout MLS matches.
Right. I mean, there's
That's the
something
MLS
there.
bias. At least Greg
Yeah,
Berhalter freaking went places and talked to players.
we did. I mean, and so I think it's part of it. You try to promote your league a little bit and say, hey, well, we've got players too. It's like it's not about that.
You
Like,
do. You have Diego Luna, certifiably a dude that people love. You know, even when you look at this roster, Max Arpston, I've come around to going, okay, fine, whatever. That's good. I think especially if you look at the goalkeepers, freaking three of them are MLS. What more do you need? Why do you have to force a guy like Sawadski in here?
yeah, I don't know. I will never know the answer on that. I think it is frustrating. There's always one of those players that these managers have. Alan Gordon with Klinsman. Who the hell knows why he kept calling that guy in? Like, I know he's a poacher,
Right.
but like,
Ugh.
you know what I mean? There's these little things they just get hung up on something. I mean, rolled on under Berhalter. I mean, obviously he's a good locker room person, but to me, you need some talent too behind that. And I just yeah, there's something there. I don't know. I don't know if there's a contract with Columbus Crew to make sure you get a player in a camp or not. Multiple players, who knows?
Maybe. Team that finished seventh in the league this year. Yeah, definitely got it. Well, anyway. Rant over. Rant over. I am glad to see Gio Reyna back, but this is my official take on Gio Reyna right now, Thomas. I am not getting excited about Gio Reyna until Gio Reyna proves that he can play soccer for longer than 12 minutes.
Yeah, it's a concern. I mean, I've made it clear recently on social media that I do want him to play and get the opportunity. Don't call these players in if you're not going to play them, in my opinion. Like, because you've got to give them field time. Um, and Reyna, he's there's definitely an immaturity with this kid. There's maybe a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. There's a little bit of pretentious arrogance, that's maybe built into him. Entitlement. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely something that the coaching staff want to see out of him. That's maybe not even skills related. Um, I mean, he does have to start playing, even if he balls out in this camp, which he could, right? He could go out there and score 2 goals, and you'd be like, "Yep, he's back in," right? And we've seen that in the last couple windows. Balogun's done that. Um, Zendejas has done that. So, yep, there he is. He can do it now, right? And Reyna could very well do that in this window and be like, "Yep, he's the guy." he's back, right? And maybe he is. Maybe that's what he needs to motivate him. Maybe he needs a little bit of that. Maybe because he hasn't had it in so long. I can't remember the last time he was called into a camp and made it through the camp. But it's been a while. Was it March? It's probably the Nations League, right?
Oof.
I
Yeah.
think it's probably Nations League. So yeah, he has to play. He has to show well. He doesn't have to necessarily score, but he's got to definitely show the value that he can provide, and which we know he can. But he's got to be given that chance too. Because to me, you've got to give him that chance. You can't be like holding that carrot out there because that's not we're adults. Be direct, be open, set
Yes.
expectations,
Yes.
right? Like and that's where Berhalter wasn't good. He didn't set proper expectations. He's whatever he said to him. It's like, look, be ready to play. I don't know, when we'll need you, but just be ready, right? And
Yeah.
because that's what good coaches do. They keep players engaged in that. Depending on the situation, you'll play, right? You might play or whatever. You have to be ready, and that's what you should be telling all your players, right? Is that sort of thing. You don't want to say, we just brought you along to bring you along. No, you have a roster. You could use every player in it if you needed to, and every player has to be ready and anticipate and visualize playing on that biggest stage in the world.
You know, we will see with him because again, it's fair to say that we don't know if he actually can play soccer anymore. He hasn't proven it. That's just where I'm at. However, he is special. He is a very special player. He's a very special talent. Anyone else from the midfield you want to kind of talk about? I mean, I feel like these are all guys that we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I think Timmy Tillman's the only one that raises an eyebrow only because he was an injury replacement. I think it's logistical. I think he's you know
I agreed.
you know
I do
he's
still question why him,
yeah, I think there's a lot of young players you
but I
could have
agree
called.
that
I
it's
mean,
because
Brian,
he's
yeah,
stateside.
yeah, Brian Gutierrez. I mean, obviously there's a number of things going on with him right now. He's trying to get a Mexican passport. You could have called him into camp. What's Wolf? I can't remember his first name. I know he had a hell of a MLS season.
Hmm.
You could have called him in, right? There are options that you could have called in that would have made me feel a little bit better about the selection. Um, I don't think both are on his radar. Tim Tillman, I don't know when the hell he was called in last either. I can find out here. Um, let's see. He was on the Gold Cup provisional roster, Nations League provisional roster. He was called in last June, so um, June friendlies. So he's never been called in under Pochettino,
Yeah.
and another new player to get get a look when he was already supposedly done experimenting.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's
So
true.
yeah, so if you're experimenting, then to me you bring in a younger player that's a little dynamic, and I think someone joked on Twitter. I think it was Tactical Manager that he called in the wrong Tillman by accident. But
Yeah. I mean,
funny joke. I get it, and I get the sarcasm.
I think it's just fair, and this is where I'm at with Pochettino, is I just don't believe the dude right now. Are we experimenting? Or are we not? Are we calling in players based on club form? Or are we not?
I think you can
Are we
experiment
calling,
with three or four players, at any point. I don't, because your core is going to be 18 to 20 players, and then the other 5 to 7, whatever it is, 7 to 8 players.
yeah,
It's going to be kind of how they are how they're doing in that moment, right? Because those are definitely going to be reserves for you, who might not see minutes.
right. I mean, that's kind of where I do question and wonder is how much does it matter? But it kind of might, and I think part of the problem too is, I mean, Tillman is noted to be a little bit more attacking-ish, right? But he's still not like an attacking midfield guy. And when I look at these midfielders, they're all, except for Gio Reyna, basically defensive dudes, right? Even Rodon has moved back into a more defensive posture. So that to me is still like, I don't love it, you know?
Yeah, and even and to me, Reyna, I'm not sure really fits into the midfield. I think if you're going to play him on this roster, I think you're going to play him kind of underneath.
Right.
Um, but he hasn't really. He's kind of played more defensive. Even, I think he played even that a little bit under in that March window. If I'm thinking back, he played a little bit more of a defensive mid, not midfielder, but like he was holding back more. He wasn't pushing forward so much on the attack. And
Right.
even under Berhalter, he kind of played a little bit more reserve there. So, um, but I think he tucks under the striker better personally. So we'll see. Hopefully he plays, and hopefully he can provide some excitement because the roster doesn't have a lot of it on it. So
No, no, it does not. Let's move up to the forward. So the final position group here: Brendan Aronson, Full Aaron Balogun, Diego Luna, Ricardo Pepi, and Haji Wright. Now, this is the first time in a long time we've had Pepi and Balogun healthy and in camp together. That alone, to answer your point just now, that is exciting. That
absolutely,
is wonderful.
yeah, it's very exciting because I mean we haven't seen Pepe in a very long time. I kind of might like to see two strikers be played maybe in one of these matches,
Ooh,
Pepe and Balogun
okay.
maybe, or whatever combination you want. Honestly, I think that might be kind of interesting to see how that works. Try it out. I think there was a match. I think he had one point was leveraging two strikers, two of the actual striker type players.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe he does that in this camp for a half or and to see how it works. 'Cause I think that's where we have some quality depth right now, and I think that's you want to try to best maximize that. And right now in this window, I don't think you have a lot of um, dynamic type players out there that could wow you a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, I'm glad to see Aronson back. Luna, he hasn't
As
really
am I.
impressed that
Yeah.
much. But I think Luna's role to me is quite clear. I think he definitely fits into this roster, and hopefully he'll also get a chance this window to against a little bit of a weaker opponents than we've seen in the last couple windows for the national team. So I think it would be good to get two wins for the group here and score some goals and kind of feel good heading into the new year and before the March window.
Yeah.
Kind of ending the year on a high note would be nice for this group.
Yeah, that is I think that's a key for this group here is put out your best foot because I we'll talk about them in just a second, but there are very key guys missing. And if you can put together a good performance individually and as a team, you are making a really good case for yourself for March, June, and then, the World Cup as a whole. But we know March is going to be the final call, right? That's the last dress rehearsal before we actually or the last auditions before we make the final selection. So if you are one of those guys who are not Jedi, Chris Richards, Weston McKinney, Christian Pulisic, even, though Tim Weah, right? If you're not one of those guys, now is a great time to stake your claim.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, this roster, this formation, and that's the one thing I do like about this group is that I think there are players who you can put in different positions and they can perform at a high level. I'm not sure you can say
Hmm.
that about past, I mean, past international World Cup teams. I mean, players kind of stick to a spot, but I think that's it's being able to play that position at a high level. So Weah can play that wing back. He can play striker. He can play winger. Right. He can play different spots on the roster. McKinney, I mean, he's all over the place. I'm not sure where he fits in or how well he fits in any one spot, but he has the quality to play in multiple spots within this roster. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I think that to me that's important. And some of these players, I think, on this roster also fit that pedigree as well. So it's going to be, take this chance because this is it. Because the March window, it's better damn well not experimental time anymore, right? It's over. You cannot. You have to bring in your best group if they're all healthy and see what it is. Because from what I'm hearing, the friendlies are going to be really top tier international teams. Um, I'm hearing
Oh,
different.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, this fall, Japan, Korea, pretty good teams, right? Ecuador, very good team. Australia, solid team. Uruguay, I mean, they're not elite now necessarily, but they're a country that's won 2 World Cups and they consistently do well there. They knocked us out, technically knocked us out of the last Copa America. And Paraguay is not a pushover by any stretch, also. So, I mean, that the rumors are Portugal and Belgium in March. Those might be the toughest of all those, but we've had some good tests. We've looked decent since this, 50th minute, maybe 60th minute in Korea against Korea. Um, so there's some momentum, and that's to me where again you have to build on what we've created so far, and if March is the final test, and those are, as you kind of rightly point out, the best teams we're going to be playing in this series of friendlies. You need to be on your best game in these two because, again, this is your opportunity. So who knows? Let's real quick discuss the fact that we do have some guys missing because I think this has been somewhat of a controversial thing for the fans. I know for me it's just frustrating, right? And to go back to kind of like I don't know if I trust Pochettino. Why are we done it? Why are we still experimenting? Why did you come out there and say like, hey, he kind of rustled his feathers at Oliver Glasner from Crystal Palace and others who were like kind of mad that we had the audacity to play players in friendlies. Uh, I don't love letting guys who aren't hurt get a pass at not coming into national team camp. That's just my blanket statement.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I said it before earlier. Healthy, called in, you're required to play. I get the fact that these are in club seasons. I get, it's club over country, which I understand. I don't always agree with because um, these players want to play for their country. And I don't know how the players feel about it. There are times and places where players need to get additional rest and be home. It's not now. It's not, 8
We do
months from
not
the
play another
yeah,
national team match for 3 months.
right. I mean, personally, I would have still called Pulisic into this camp and say, look, you're not going to, you'll lightly train on the side. You're just going to be around the players, right? You're going to be around the team because we need that. We need that continuity. We need that, we need that feel because we're going to have that, right? And I think, and if I'm a player, right, I want that. If I'm a player like Trusty or Tillman that, hasn't been on the roster that much, right? I want the best players around. I mean, Pulisic could train. Richards could train. Doesn't mean they don't play. But I to me, like, it's not the time to negotiate with these clubs. Okay, we don't have to do that.
Mm,
U.S. Soccer has,
hmm
and I don't have the pulse on how other international teams, work with the clubs. But I tell you, the U.S. is so accommodating for this, right? I mean, we can go back to it, and because I know for a fact, and you probably know this too, it's when they try to call in players from Atlanta United. I think Miles Robinson and I don't think it was Wiley. Who was their other left back? I can't. I'm not
George Bello.
George Bello, right? For a friendly, maybe it was January camp. I don't remember, but they didn't want to send them, and U.S. Soccer was pissed that they wouldn't
Yeah.
release the players, and rightfully so. Um, so, and now they're kind of playing the other way, and I get it if it's the first. I get it if it's the first, window after a World Cup, and you don't want to send players. I get it. I hate it as a fan because I want to see the best players in camp. I want to hear what's going on, and um, but McKinney has a new coach. Richards is tired or whatever. Like he's not injured. He played 90 minutes the on over the weekend. Like it's crazy to me that they're
Yeah.
allowed to be pushed around that much, by that, and they don't have to be. They actually have the upper hand there. So I don't know what type of relationships they're trying to save in general, because this is World Cup time. I mean, and we're the host nation, so why it drives me nuts. It just does. There's no rhyme or reason to this, and I wish that's something I think you can be transparent about. Yeah, we want to have a good relationship with Crystal Palace going forward. Okay, I don't like it, but at
Why?
least you're
But why? That's my question. Why?
yeah.
What are we afraid that uh, okay, we're not calling them in for random camps for a U20 World Cup or anything like that. Like we're calling him in during normal FIFA windows where they're sending other team players as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they caved under that for sure. That definitely, you know. And again, Pochettino is probably sensitive to that as a former club coach of players being released, and he's like, "Geez, I like him to kind of stay here with the club a little bit, or get the extra rest, or whatever it is, right?" I mean, because they are focused on their seasons. I get that, right? I mean, I think that's a challenge, right? I mean, these managers, some of them don't get long runs, and so if their players aren't coming back to camp in the proper form, I mean, we've seen in the past where players have missed the match coming back to camp
Right.
after an international window. Precautionary, likely. Um, to me, that it questions a larger issue here, about maybe these international windows need to be a little bit longer, right? To give a little bit more, to allow these players to play in them, but to give them a little bit more rest headed into, because you could schedule all matches for that Saturday before. Everyone can travel Saturday night or into Sunday, right? I mean, you could schedule a little bit more to allow an extra day or two
Yep.
within
Yep.
that window, so they could have the proper rest between, coming and going to camp. So, because what I
Yeah,
have to
you could
wonder,
absolutely schedule it where you have no Sunday games and then you don't start until at least Saturday. If not, you only play Sunday and Monday. I mean, there's ways to do it. I agree.
yeah, yeah, because what I have to wonder is this, and we'll see it, and I'll probably monitor it pretty closely. I don't know when the roster will be announced officially for the World Cup for the men, but I have to wonder if, with 3, 4 games left in the club season, if a team is kind of in a spot where they're not going to, you know, improve their position within the table for their club, will we see, likely World Cup players
Mm,
receive rest? Will we see that?
mm.
Right? And to me, that's going to be something I'll be monitoring closely, for that in general, because out of curiosity to, to where that falls. Because if you don't have nothing to play for, and I'm the player, you can say you want to play, but you know what? If you can have the match off, the last match of the season off, I understand. If you're paying for tickets, you want to see the players. I get that. Well, so do I, right? I'm a paying fan that wants to see the stars play. So, and sometimes there has to be concessions for certain things, especially the World Cup, where you maybe give these players an extra week or two to recover and be ready for the World Cup. Because it's for some of these players, it's maybe one opportunity.
I I think that's something that I think a lot of clubs, and I get it, they're the ones paying the salaries, so that's kind of the real rub here. But at some point, you have to understand that the player has a life and a dream to play in a World Cup like this, especially if you're Chris Richards or Christian Pulisic, a chance to be the dude at a home World Cup is something that not a lot of guys get to say. I mean, that's just the reality.
Yeah, for sure. And so we'll see. We'll see how that comes into play. I'm excited to see, hopefully, some new faces starting and getting minutes in this window. Maybe a couple different formation combinations, shifting of players around. So, um,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the for the most part, the best lineup within this group kind of builds itself for me. Um, there's
What would
certain
be your
players.
lineup be? Yeah, what's your best 11
So I
before we
think
get
I
out
would,
of here?
yeah, I if for a 3-4-2-1, whatever it is, we have freeze. I would do Des on the right, wing back, and then the 3 center backs would be Scally, Robinson central, and then probably Ream. I prefer maybe McKenzie there just to see someone else. Arfson would be on the left wing back. And then you would see Tessman and probably Morris kind of at the holding midfielder position. And then I'd like to see Reyna start behind the strikers, probably with Aronson and or Luna, depending on who you're going to mix in there. And then I kind of want to see Pepe get some minutes, but Pepe or Balogun I'll be fine with at striker. So something of that nature, I think, is pretty straightforward. Those players like Scally, I think they need the minutes. I think they need to be given the opportunity to do that, or why call them in?
I don't disagree. I mean, that's just kind of where I will say, I would like to see, and I know he loves Max Arfton, so I doubt we'll see it. If we are kind of maybe possibly getting a little nervous about Jedi Robinson, I would consider seeing what we can do with Dest on the left, because we've seen Tim Weah play the right side, right? And if we're going to put Joe Scally as that right-sided center back, right, and the back three, what it turns into, I think we put Dest on the opposite side. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I mean, they have moved way around. I think you do need to see what it's going to look like, with him on that left side. I think that's where the experimentation has to happen a little bit. You have to utilize that, try the things out, right? Because hopefully, this isn't the squad we see at the World Cup. But if it is, you need to make sure that you have the different options and know what they are, because you can't go into something saying, well, we got to change it up and never have tried it, right? You've got to be able to try these things, right? And you can try it and you can fail in that moment, still be successful in winning the match. You can do those things. And that's kind of still what this experimentation is about at this point in terms of roster selection, formation, tactics, all those different things.
That's the experimentation I'd rather see than random dude who doesn't actually play soccer games. But what do I know?
For sure.
All right, Thomas, anything from you about these games before we head out of here?
No, I'm excited to see them. I think they're good opponents. I think we've mentioned in general, like, these are opponents you need to beat to get further in your group in the World Cup, further in the knockout stage of a World Cup. You will see teams of this quality a pivotal points within the World Cup that you need to beat to advance out of the group or further into the World Cup knockout stage. So I think it'll be another good test for them. I want to see good quality. I want to be excited about what I see and be hopefully 2 wins.
All right, he's putting it out there, 2 wins. Let's see if that happens. We have a game on Saturday at 5 p.m. in Chester, Pennsylvania against Paraguay, and then a game on Tuesday night against Uruguay in the big stadium, Raymond James, down in Tampa, where they have a pirate ship that I hope will be setting off the cannon shots when the U.S. scores. I think that would be awesome. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Make sure you follow Thomas on Twitter at USKeeper. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Soccer4UsPod. I'm Bart. I'm out.